Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode of Frankly Speaking Sports Interview. I'm your host, Larry Frank. We're coming to you from our Hopkinsville studios here in Hopkinsville, Kentucky. We are on NGSC Sports, Tobacco Radio, Sports Radio, and all other social media outlets. We're about 7 miles down the road from Fort Campbell Army Base right here in Hopkinsville. And boy, do we have an incredible story for you tonight. You know, we think about players and things and Hall of Famers that make it to the Hall of Fame because of their credentials on the field. Well, I'll tell you what, we have a Hall of Fame story for you tonight. Guy might not be a Hall of Famer as far as in the Football Hall of Fame, but he's definitely a Hall of Fame person who has had just an amazing life. Has 9 brain surgeries, suffered. I couldn't even count on, I couldn't even probably count the number of concussions this gentleman has. He's a former defensive tackle for the 1980 Bowl, 82 Super Bowl champion San Francisco 49ers. Let's welcome in George Visger. George, how you doing tonight, buddy?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me.
Hey, thanks for coming on, George. I want to start out because we talk about all the concussions you have had in your lifetime, and it's not something that started after you started your NFL career. This is something that began long way before you even played in the NFL. From what I understand, when you were in Pee Wee football, talk about the, you know, remembering, if you can, the first concussion you had, when it was, and how many concussions have you actually had before you even started your NFL career?
Here's what I always ask people: concussions or diagnosed concussions. So there's difference. So I started playing Pee Wee Pop Warner when I was 11, and I played on the very first Pee Wee Pop Warner team Stockton, California had, Northern Cal. We had 29 kids on the team, and 3 of us signed NFL contracts in 1980. And our safety was Vaughn Hayes, who went on to Major League Baseball All-Star career. So we had four professional athletes on this little pipsqueak team. Needless to say, we came out kicking butt and taking names. We scored like 250 something points the first 5 games I ever played, and gave up 0. So I was hooked. I went both ways. I was a skinny, scrawny kid. They nicknamed me Clang. I was so knock-kneed when I ran. They said they could hear my knees clanging clear across the field. But I was a tough kid, and I loved to hit. And by my third year pop, and I started lifting weights in 7th grade because I wanted to play in the NFL. And by my third year Pop Warner, after 3 years of lifting, I was all of 132 pounds. But that was my first diagnosed concussion. I knocked myself totally unconscious in a stupid, worthless bowling ring drill in practice. It's a drill no one should ever run, much less young kids. So only missed 2 games. And I can remember the first day I came back practice, one of the coaches said, "Hey, you can't be afraid to hit now. You got to stick your nose in there again like you did." And I did. I mean, that's what like I said, I wasn't big and strong and fast, but I was tough and I liked to hit. And then went into high school, Amos Alonzo Stagg High. And most people probably don't even know who Amos Alonzo Stagg was, but he was on the very first All-American team in like 1899 with the likes of Pop Warner and guys that invented the game. And my school was named after him. Stagg finished his 60-something year coaching career in Stockton, and they built a school for him. He lived to be 102. And so I entered Stagg High School, played varsity 2 years was all. But by then, my junior, I worked myself. I was about 215 then. Kept working out, getting bigger. By my senior, I was about 235. And now had decent speed, running 4.9, good student, 3.0. And my dream was to play in the NFL, and I wanted to be a biologist. Those were my 2 goals from the time I was a little kid. My dad drove a beer truck, raised 6 of us kids in a 1,000 square foot home with 1 bathroom and no air conditioning. And so it was like I knew if I wanted to go somewhere, I was going to need to earn it. And so by my end of my senior year at Stag, and I played on amazing teams at every level. Championship Pee Wee teams, Pop Warner teams. At Stag, we lost one game my junior year. It's the only game. It was a bowl game. The only game we ever lost while I played there. We were nationally ranked, and so I had a lot of scholarship offers. And like I said, I had good grades, and I went to University of Colorado in '76 on a football scholarship. I majored in fisheries biology. We won the Big Eight championship. It was the Big Eight back then, and we played. We beat Oklahoma. We played the old Woody Hayes Ohio State Buckeyes in the '77 Orange Bowl before Coach Woody started punching people out and got canned.
Yep.
Remember that toward the end of his career? He got a little bit cranky.
Yeah, a little bit.
He threw a few punches there, you know.
Yep, I remember that. I remember that real well. So let me tell you, even before we get to the brain surgeries and different things you had to encounter in your life, right away, you proved you were a tough cookie when you got in the, what was it, 2 weeks, I think, before the NFL draft, you broke your back and you played your whole rookie season, I heard, with the broken back. When did you finally realize, hey, something's wrong with my back? And when
as soon as I did it, I mean, the second I did it, we can get you. So we went to Colorado. So I ended up starting 3 years in Colorado. Had a number of concussions over the years, but never diagnosed. In fact, we played Oregon 1 year. I don't remember if my sophomore or junior year. And my very best friend I grew up with in Stockton, who I played Pop Warner with, and he went on, Cosgrove went on to play with the Seahawks for a year. And his younger brother, Chris, I grew up with, and Chris ended up playing at Oregon. And when we played them, I had my only interception in my entire career, a couple of sacks. I was player of the week. I don't remember the game. And several years later, I ran into Chris Cosgrove, and he said, yeah, early in the first quarter, you made a tackle. You were out cold, face down. They came out, carried you off, drug you off. A couple series later, I came back and played. I played the whole game. I guess I went out with his parents had flown out for the game. I went out to dinner with him afterwards. And it's all news to me. It was like years later, he's telling me what went on that night. And I'm like, all right, never missed a play, never missed a practice, and I had a few of those over the years, and I tell people when you don't remember something, you don't know, you don't remember it. It's like, I don't remember what I did all last week, but if I really sit down and try to think, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, but if I don't really try to grind it out, it's just not there. So I don't know. I don't remember it. So
go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Now, I was going to say, you're playing in the NFL, and I remember the story that I think you were playing the Cowboys. I think it was one of your first NFL games, actually, and you got slapped in the helmet on 2 trap plays, I think it was. I think the second one you were knocked out cold, and I think they administered, what do they call it, smelling salt.
Yeah.
And Coach Bill Walsh told you to get back in and play in the next play. Talk about that story.
So on the back, when I fractured my back, that was the 2 weeks before the draft. I was doing squats, and so I played my whole rookie year. You don't want to say anything to anybody because they'll cut you in a heartbeat. And so, so I was originally drafted by the Jets in the 6th round, and I got cut in the preseason. And then the Niners picked me up. It was about the 5th game of the season. They cut a veteran, brought me in. So I had a real short week. So games are on Sundays. Mondays are a light day. Tuesdays are the days off in the NFL. And that's when they bring guys in and work them out. So I really only had Wednesday, Thursday to practice. Friday, we were playing Dallas. It was a Saturday game, so we had a short week. So they give me a little skinny playbook. We fly to Dallas. And I'm playing defensive tackle. By now, I'm 275 from my little skinny Clang days, And first play I'm in on a goal line, and I get ear hold on a Dallas tight end trap. And on a trap, they intentionally don't block the defensive tackle, and they want you to get upfield, and they'll bring in Dallas runs it. Well, they bring the tight end from in motion, so he's got a good head of steam running, and they want me to get upfield, and they blow me up, and there's a big gap. So I catch one right in the temple from Doug Cosby, who Cosby and I now are very good friends for many years. In the brain injury battle with the NFL, we connected probably 10 or 10 years ago, and doing talks together. And so I catch one in the temple. It's lights out. I don't remember the rest of the game. I don't remember the next week. I don't remember playing the Rams the following week. And but watching game films, I guess I came off sideways. They were giving me smelling salts all game. Clear my head, go back in, and then later on in the third or fourth quarter, I get ear hold on another Dallas tight end trap, but on the other ear. So they got both the temples. They knocked a hole in this one, and then this one kind of pushed it back out. So I was looking okay after the game. But so again, like I said, don't remember the game, don't remember the next week. And then so that was middle of the season in 80. And then they actually cut me a couple weeks later, then brought me back the last 3 or 4 games of the season. This kind of stuff happens all the time. We literally made like 26 roster changes after the final cut day in 1980. So every week you come in the locker room and Mike, Paul, and Joe are gone, and there's some new guys. And next week, 2 guys, it's like there's no job security and there's 0 guaranteed contracts. So you play 1 game back then of $100,000 contract and they cut you. They owed you 1/16 of that contract, and that was it. So it's not like baseball. You sign a 10-year, $100 bazillion contract, and they cut you. They owe you that. NFL is not like that. It's more of an agreement, not a contract.
Right.
So I played the rest of the season when they brought me back, and then and by then the broken back I had, because I didn't want to say anything. So our end of the year release physical, and now I'm going to say something. I mean, they'd already known my right leg had atrophied 2 1/4 inches during the season, and I have skinny legs to begin with, And so I tell the docs, I said, hey, I popped my back, last May. My right leg has been on fire. I had sciatica horribly all year. Anyway, they sent me to 3 different specialists who all told me some BS story and gave this drug, that drug. I said, no. So they ended up diagnosing I had fractured my back. By then it was healing out of place. So now we're into mini camp. Season ended in December, and then mini camp is like May, the day after the draft. So in mini camp, couple day camp, and ended up blowing my knee out. And they tell me it's a sprain. They're draining 60, 70 cc's of blood out of it every week. Keeps going out, sprain. We get into camp, preseason camp, and I'm having a good camp, and I blew my knee out again and ended up having knee surgery. And then when I was coming back off of that, I started getting these killer headaches every night. When I'd get these pounding headaches, I'd have a ball of light in front of each eye. My hearing would come and go with the beat of my heart. The whole edge of my vision would light up. And so I go see the team docs, the same doc that these guys were horrible. And he tells me it's high blood pressure. So they have me on high blood pressure pills. Now I'm 22 years old, prime of my life, not someone you would expect to have high blood pressure, right? So I'm taking these high blood pressure pills, and every day, I'm getting worse and worse. I'd wake up in the morning, pounding headaches, and then by the afternoon, evening, I would start puking. And I told the docs that when I puke so hard at night, I told them, I said, it's like I could hit the bowl from 20 yards out and chip porcelain. I mean, it's like a fire hose. Well, later on, I through my own investigation, that's what they call projectile vomiting. And that's a classic symptom of intracranial pressure, that I was having to bleed. Team docs blow me off, take more pills. I'm on these pills for 2.5 weeks, getting worse. And then the last night, We had played Chicago that day, and I'm rooming with two guys on the team, Terry Totolo and Scott Stouch. And if you Google my name and Terry Totolo, I found him living in an underpass in 2011, no teeth, eating out of garbage cans after a 9-year NFL career with his brain gone. We got him back on track. So anyway, I'm in the hospital. So we played that day. Chicago, I was on injury reserve with knee surgery. Afterwards, we go out, have a few beers. I'm getting close to my puking time, so I head back to the barn. Terry and Scott stay out till the bars close at 2. I get back to the apartment. I mean, I can't see now. My eyesight's gone. My head's pounding. I'm puking my guts out. My hearing would come and go with the beat of my heart. And they come in and they said, "Man, let's take you to the hospital." I said, "Nah, high blood pressure." And that kind of attitude is just pounded in your brain when you're a young athlete. Hey, no pain, no gain. Can't make the club in the tub. All the little fancy little sayings they have, Only sissies could, talk about their injuries. And so I'm blowing them off. And Terry keeps coming in that night every hour or so. "Hey, man, let me take you." And I'm getting worse and worse. And finally, I don't know what time it was, 4 or 5 in the morning. I'm over the bowl. I mean, I don't want to get gross, but I've been empty for a long time. I'm puking so hard, I'm just puking up foamy blood. I've torn something. And while I'm vomiting, my right arm does one of these up under my chin. And now I stumble back to bed. I'm laying there, can't see, can't hear, and this thing's going on. So I grab it and I pull my arm out. But when I grab, I couldn't feel anything. And I let go of it and it would just curl back up. Well, later on, I've come to find that's called focal point paralysis, another classic symptom of intracranial pressure. So this thing, it keeps doing this. And now I'm thinking, okay, I'm dying. And I'm praying and I'm saying, "Okay, God, let Terry or Scott come in and check on me. I'll let them take me to the hospital, but I'm not going to be a pussy and go wake them up." That was the mentality. So I finally passed out. Days after games, we go into the locker room, I don't know, 7:38, whatever time it was. So when I get up in the morning after a couple hours of being passed out, I could move this arm, but I could barely lift a cup of coffee. And now I'm pissed. I mean, it's like, you know what? Don't tell me it's high blood pressure. We go into the facilities. I do my treatment on my knee. We have a couple of meetings, a typical day after the games, couple of meetings, injury treatment, walk through, and then you're out of there, right? So the team docs come in and are checking everyone that got dinged the day before. So I wait till Dr. Baling, our orthopedic surgeon, who 3 of my teammates from that year successfully won malpractice suits against the guy. 3. So I wait till he comes in. I walk into his little office on the locker room. I walk into his office. He looks at me. He says, "What now?" And I said, "Don't effing tell me it's high blood pressure." I said, "My arm went paralyzed last night." And he rolls his eyes. He tells me to sit on the table, gets his little flashlight. I come to find out they're called a retinoscope, looks in my eye. And this is how my book starts. And my book comes out in another week or 2. This is the first sentence. He looks in my eye. He says, "Oh my God, your brain's hemorrhaging." I jump off the table ready to kill him. He goes, "No, wait." And I'm livid. So he's got his hand out, he's fumbling around, he grabs a phone, and I'm mad dogging him, what I should be doing to him, I'm telling him. So he dials a couple numbers, scratches something on a piece of paper, and this is where my book turns into the comedy. He goes, "Here, go home, lie down, and drive down to Palo Alto, Stanford this afternoon to see this neurologist." So I'm thinking, okay, must be a mild brain hemorrhage, or they would have called an ambulance, right? I mean, I drive myself back to the apartment in Redwood City where Terry and Scott and I had an apartment. That afternoon, I drive through Bay Area traffic to Stanford Hospital. I see this neurologist. He takes one look at me, and they didn't want to do a CT brain scan, but it was booked up for a couple hours. And I said, "Hey, Doc," I said, "I'll come back." And he looks at me, he says, "You drove here?" I said, "Yeah, I drove here." He goes, "You can't drive like this." I said, "I've been driving like this for weeks." He He goes, no, no, we're putting you in a room. So I'm arguing with him. I don't need no doggone room. They convinced me to hang out in a room for a couple hours, take me in, do a CT brain scan. I'm rushed. They rushed me in. A few hours later, I'm having emergency brain surgery. I had developed what's called hydrocephalus, which is water on the brain. And so your brain produces like a pint of spinal fluid a day, and it flows around your brain, down your spinal column, and is reabsorbed. It's to flush out toxins and dead cells and impurities. And if you took a CAT scan on the top of your brain, like an X-ray, in the very middle of it, there are 4 ventricles, and they look like a little X. And right where they cross is a little teeny tiny tube called the aqueduct of Sylvius. So the back 2 ventricles produce that pint of spinal fluid. Every day it flows through that little aqueduct to the front 2 ventricles around the brain and down. Well, every time you get a concussion, scar tissue develops on your brain somewhere. And they think on me over the years, it developed at that little aqueduct of Sylvius and plugged her off. So when I produce that pint of spinal fluid every day in those back 2 ventricles, they're like water balloons just filling up, and they're crushing my brain from the inside out. So they did what's called a ventricular peritoneal shunt. So they drill a hole in my skull, and they've moved this thing 4 times now. So I have 4 holes in my head. I'm like a bowling ball. But there's a tube goes into the middle of that ventricle. It goes to the back of my head, and you can kind of see the pump is back here. And then from the back of that, there's a tube on the side of my neck, goes through my pec, down into my ab. And as we're speaking right now, it's slowly letting cerebral spinal fluid drip out of my brain. So I developed hydrocephalus. I have a VP shunt. And as soon as they call the Niners, hey, we're taking Visger for brain surgery, it was like, oops, make him disappear. And they tried their darndest for years to make me disappear. And I
let me ask you this, George, because you're hitting a point that I wanted to get at. From what I'm understanding, and please correct me if I'm wrong, when you did suffer, when you started having your brain surgeries and stuff, there was very much a lack of support from the San Francisco 49ers.
You think? They gave me
right, exactly. So they weren't supportive in any way, shape.
Just because they gave me the hospital bills didn't mean they weren't supporting me.
Right, exactly. And that's what I wanted to just bring up. They didn't want to pay any of the medical bills that you encountered from this.
Well, here's what's crazy. So that first brain surgery during the Super Bowl season, they paid for it. Now, while I'm in intensive care for 2 weeks and they get rid of Terry, they cut Terry and they send Scott to New Orleans. So the only people from the entire organization to come to see me in the hospital, except one day while I'm in there, this woman walks in. I have no idea who she is. And she goes, "Hi, George." And I'm like, "Who the hell are you?" She goes, "Well, I'm Bill's secretary." So Walsh sends his secretary in, but he didn't have the balls to come in and see me because if Bill Walsh was seen at the neurosurgery intensive care unit, people would ask questions. So he sends in the secretary. Even my position coach didn't come to see me. He should have been my guy. So while I'm in the hospital, the trainers and doctors are calling me and telling me, "Hey, we're going to looking into having a special made helmet to protect your shunt. You can keep playing." So I was all in. I mean, you got to understand the mentality of the ball players. They're like warriors. It's till you cut my legs and arms off, I'm still fighting. And so I'm thinking I'm still playing. I come back on injury reserve. I'm still working out. Now we're winning. They don't want anything rocking the boat. But I'm not feeling right. It's like when I had knee surgery, that was in the paper. And I was a nobody in the NFL. I was just, blue collar, kid, knuckles in the dirt, trying to make a name. But here I had brain surgery, nothing said. And they're treating me weird, So, but I'm thinking it's just me. And late in the season, I'm in the weight room, and we're all working out. You got Ronnie Lott, you got Dwight Clark, Montana, and a bunch of the guys. And John McVeigh, our general manager, comes through with 3 local business couples, husband-wife couples, touring the facilities. So he's introducing them to different players. This is Keith Fonhorst, blah, blah. This is George Visger, one of our veteran defensive linemen. He's on injury reserve. McVeigh says he had 2 knee operations. And this woman looks at me and she goes, 2? How'd you have 2? And I said, no, ma'am, I have knee surgery and a brain surgery. And McVeigh, our general manager, looked me right in the eye with a look like, keep your mouth shut or you're gone. He says, no brain surgery, you have 2 knee operations. Now I know I'm not hallucinating that they're covering something up. I mean, because I had this weird feeling. It was like, what? And so I go, he's freaking right. I walk out of the weight room. I walk right up to Keith Fonhorst, who was our player rep in the union, which is players' union. It's like, excuse my, but like tits on a bull. They're worthless, you know. And so I go, Keith, I said, I don't know what to do. I feel like I need to talk to somebody legally. And keep in mind, I had no idea I was headed for a 38-year legal battle. I had no idea what was ahead of me. I had no idea I was going to have. I mean, it was like, what's going on? So anyway, they set me up with some knucklehead from the Players Association. That's a whole long story. So we keep winning, and then we're getting ready to the day we're leaving for the Super Bowl. Now the team had gone a week early. Us injured guys went like the last 6. They were there for 2 weeks. We were there for six days. So we got to take two guests with us, and I took my dad and one of my older brothers. Both my older brothers played college football, and so the other brother staying home called. So because I'm like, hey, I want this out. I feel like I'm headed for a fall, and I'm going to be one of these guys that no one ever heard the story, and it's easy to make him disappear. And so my oldest brother Bob calls the Sacramento Bee newspaper, the San Francisco Chronicle, the Examiner, the Oakland Tribune, all these local papers, and he said, hey, I'm a 49er fan. I was in Stanford Hospital back in September, into September. I met this 49er, had brain surgery. Well, you and I both know, and for the Super Bowl, they look for any stupid story they can write. You know, I mean, the name of someone's pet mouse. I mean, they look for stories, right?
Yep.
Hey, so
you're right.
he eats, 4 carrots every day. You know what I mean? Every day. So this would be a story. So Bob calls me. I mean, literally, we're hours away from leaving. The game was in Detroit, if I remember correctly. He says, when you get there, he goes, you're going to be inundated. Every one of the newspapers I talked to said, this is a scoop. We'll interview him. Well, I was there 6 days. In order for any media to find out what hotel I was in, they had to go through the front office of the Niners. No one speaks to me. Now, my first brain surgery was the end of September, and I remember that because my birthday is September 26th, and I remember turning 23 in intensive care. So between September and the following May, okay, I get arrested 3 times. I can't tell you how, and I've never been arrested in my life. I can't tell you how many times we'd go out and have a couple beers. Next thing I know, I'm at the house. I go out in the morning, go to work, no truck. I have no idea where I left my truck. I'm calling people. Did you see me last night? Yeah, this bar. And then, oh yeah, you're over here at this bar. You punched some guy out. You threw a chair through the window. I'm like, okay, totally out of character for me. I abhor people like this, right? And all of a sudden, all these stories are coming in. I'm losing my truck. Then I start ending up in jail. Go out, have a couple beers. Next thing you know, 6, 8, 10 hours later, I'm standing in jail, not passed out, with zero memory how I got there. So I go back. Now this is just by May. We played the Super Bowl end of January. So this isn't like years later. And they're telling me I can still play. I'm still on the team. I'm still going to play. So in May, I go back to Stanford and I see Dr. George Koenig, the first neurosurgeon that operated on me. And I said, hey, something has happened since your surgery. I said, I have a couple beers and I turn into the kind of guys that I freaking hate. I can't stand loudmouth punk bullies. I said, that's what I'm hearing. He goes, well, not for my surgery. I said, well, I've never done this before. So they do a brain scan on me. He says, you look fine. I told him, I said, I'm leaving for Mexico tomorrow with my brother to go fishing for a few days. He goes, no problem, leave the country. I go, what about drinking? No problem. We fly to Cabo the very next day, my brother and his wife. We got a little cabin on the beach. We're going to fish for a few days. The first night there, the day after I just saw this, my neurosurgeon from Stanford, I have one margarita at dinner, start getting pounding headache like I did before the surgery. I told my brother Mel, I said, hey, I'm going to head back to the barn. I'm not feeling good, you know. So Mel and Nancy stay out for 2 or 3 more hours and they come back. My last memory is I'm puking, my eyesight's going, my head's going to explode. They come back, I'm in a walking coma, can't speak, eyes dilated, vomiting, stumbling around the cabin. Mel and my brother Mel's going, you know, didn't know what to do. So they call a doc down there who, you know, he didn't know what to do. So my brother Mel calls my brother Bob in Sacramento. Bob calls an orthopedic surgeon friend of his, Dr. Agee. Dr. Agee calls a neurosurgeon friend of his, Dr. Cobb. Cobb says, your friend in Mexico is dying. His shunt's out. Do not let him operate in Mexico. You got to get him home. So Agee calls Bob. Bob calls Mel. I got to get him home. And I have zero memory of the next 16 or 18 months from that night vomiting in Cabo. So my poor brother, I guess, he gets me to the airport, has me by the hand. You know, I'm incoherent, eyes bugging out of my head, vomiting. Airlines go, this guy isn't flying. So I guess we missed a flight, missed a second flight. Mel's calling, you know, hours we're stuck down there, and I'm dying, literally. Mm-hmm. And so finally Bob says, the federales came up and told him, if you don't get on the next flight, we'll get you a private plane. And so the airlines, they convinced them to let me fly. They get me to Long Beach, stabilize, fly me to Sacramento. The next morning, I have my second emergency brain surgery. Well, the first shunt they put in, they drilled the hole in the back of my head. So they got to get that tube all the way into the middle to that ventricle. And so I have a new doctor, Dr. Coley Cobb, who I love to death. The guy has saved my life literally a few times over the years, and a good man. But I guess I was in such bad shape, he didn't want to traumatize me. He was telling my family, I'd drill a new hole. So they put it in the original hole. 10 hours later, my brother Bob, who lives in Sacramento, gets a phone call from Sutter Memorial Hospital. Is this Bob Visger? Yes, this is Sutter Memorial. Your brother George is back in a coma. We're wheeling him in right now. It doesn't look good. Your family should get down here. They wheel me in 10 hours later, do a third brain surgery, bring in a priest, give me last rites. I have zero memory of the next 16, 18 months of my life. Zero. I guess I was completely out of it. I mean, I would show up on my brother's job sites with 40 staples in my head, half my head shaved, and put my nail bags on. I'm in a frame. He's like, what are you doing? You know, and then he said I'd work a day or so doing things upside down, backwards. And then he said he wouldn't hear from me for days. No one would know where I went. This is pre-cell phones too, right? And I would disappear. And so after a year and a half or so, when my memory comes back, my first memory, here's a stack of hospital bills. So I write on it, and I have like zero memory, but I wrote the 49ers address so many times I remember. I would write, please bill San Francisco 49ers, 711 Nevada Street, Redwood City, and I'd send it back to the Niners. And a week or so later, they would send it back to me, and all it would say was, you owe this amount, and they'd circle the total. Not even a card. Hey, Visk, sorry to hear you're back in hospital. And again, I never retired. I never quit. I was never cut. I just never even thought about going back that year and a half. I don't have any memory. I just didn't go back. So all of a sudden these hospital bills. Now, also keep in mind, my second year in the NFL, I made all of $65,000, and then we had playoff money and the Super Bowl, which I mean, my 2 years playing, I made a grand total of, I think, $106,000, and my whole life was turned upside down. So now I have a year and a half of no memory. I wasn't working, and hospital bills. And I mean, I'm living in a cheap little apartment, and I'm bouncing at nights and working construction with my brother during the day. I mean, I started as a laborer with him because I wasn't a carpenter. I didn't know anything. And I'm fighting off creditors and just trying to keep the wolves at bay. I was forced to sue for work comp, and unbeknownst to me, when I won my case in '86, I was the only NFL player that ever won a work comp case, and no one won another one until 2010. I was the only guy ever, and it came this close to me losing it. 3 judges voted on my case. One said, yes, I believe it was a work-related injury. The second one said no, because the Niners were saying it was a congenital defect I had from birth. But it took 23 years and 12 years of football to show, but it had nothing to do with the concussions I had, right? So the second judge says, one says yes, one says no, and the third judge says, I really can't tell. It was that close to me losing my work comp case. Had I lost that, I would have had to pay for 8 brain surgeries, multiple grand mal seizures over the year. I mean, I don't know. I'd be like where Terry was, eating out of garbage cans under a bridge somewhere. If I'd even lasted this long, I wouldn't even lasted this long. I wouldn't have had any medical coverage. So when I won my case in '86, they offered me $35,000. And I told them to pound sand. And I said, I want what every injured employee has earned. I want my past medical paid. I want my future medical left open. And thank you, God, that I did. And I truly mean that. God has had his hands on me this whole battle. And I said, and I also no longer function in my capacity as an employee of the NFL. I don't call myself a player. I said I was an employee, and you are obliged by law to retrain me in a field of work where I make, quote unquote, a comparable amount of money. That's called vocational rehab. If I was pushing a broom somewhere and got injured on a job and couldn't push the broom, that employer has to retrain me where I make a comparable amount of money. And so I told him, I said, all I want to do, I had 4 years of biology that I studied at Colorado before I was drafted. I said, all I want to do is go back to school and finish my biology degree, and I'll be done with you dirtbags. And so, there was a big investment, and they agreed. So I went back to school at Sacramento State in '86. Now I had 4 more semesters of chemistry, 2 of physics left, 2 of pre-calc. I go back in '86. In one 10-month period, while I'm taking these courses, 10 months, I had 5 more emergency brain surgeries, several grand mal seizures, developed dyslexia, major short-term memory issues. It was a nightmare. It took me 5 more years, and I graduated at age 32 with 172 units. I have a degree in biological conservation, minor in social studies, and at age 32, I went to work. My second dream, which was to be a biologist. I started working as a wildlife biologist. And then life was going pretty good. Then '93, 3 years later, that shunt blew out. I had my 9th brain surgery. But let me back up a little bit. So the knee surgery they did on me in '81, Dr. Doom, the same guy that got sued by 3 of my teammates, I had to have 2 more surgeries on that in '84 while I'm in this legal battle, trying to repair what he screwed up, and I ended up having the 3rd surgery. They did an experimental Gore-Tex ACL transplant, put a few bolts in there trying to hold it together. So I'm dealing with the knee, dealing with the brain. So got back in school and finished my degree in 1990 and went to work as a biologist. And in '93, that shunt went out. Like I said, I had my 9th brain surgery, went back to work as a biologist. I met my my first wife, Christy, and my oldest daughter, Stephanie. Steph was 2. I met them at a gym in 93, 94. We got married a couple years later, raising a family. I have 3 most amazing kids in the world. They've been through the grinder and are just amazing people. And so went back as a biologist, and then when Steph was really young, I would be on the road like 2 weeks at a time and home for 4 days. So she was having some trouble with me being gone. So I taught high school for 2.5 years. I taught English language learners algebra, and I taught biology, chemistry, environmental studies, and then went back into the wildlife field in 99. And then 2003, I started my own environmental consulting business. But I've always been livid about what the NFL got away with. And I've always been very vocal. Nobody wanted to talk about brain injuries. Guys will talk about their knees and their shoulders. They don't tell me when you have your brain damaged. And this caused a big rift in my first marriage. You know, Christy would say, you keep telling them when you're brain damaged, no one's going to hire you. I said, I am brain damaged, but I work my butt off. I outwork anyone they'll hire, you know, and I know my limitations. I write things down. And so I battled through all that stuff, and I get off track like I am right now. I've lost my train of thought where I was going with this. So then after Christy and I got married, we had 2 kids. We had Amanda, who actually graduated from Sac State 2-3 years ago, gave the commencement speech.
Nice.
And then Jack, my son Jack, we had a couple years after that in 99. And Jack is graduating right now, honors dean's list with a degree in environmental engineering or technology or some crazy stuff. And he got hired 2 years ago as an intern. He's already has a job. He hasn't even graduated yet. And he's killing it. And so the kids are doing great. My oldest daughter, Stephanie, went on to start her own esthetician business. So kids were doing good. I wasn't. I just kept pushing and grinding as the memory got worse. And as the memory got worse, my frustrations built. And as my frustrations built, my anger built. And it was eroding my marriage. The kids were afraid of me. I never touched Christy or any of the kids, but I could be very intimidating. You know, I got the Lebanese eyebrows going, you know, and you know, I can be a little scary. And I was bigger back then too. I'm not a pencil neck now, but so it caused it really, really, really tore my family apart.
Yeah, let me ask you this because I want to go into your group that you developed back, I think it was 2010. But before we do that, I want to ask you this question. Everything that you've been through, and you know, people can say what they want, but you and I both know football played a very, very big role, if not complete role, in what you have gone through in your life. What would you tell parents today that question whether their kids should play or not play football?
Let's put it this way. So I played on championship Pee Wee Pop Warner teams, championship Pop Warner teams, nationally ranked high school teams. I played in the Orange Bowl, and I played on a Super Bowl championship team, and my own son was dying to play, and he never played. I never let Jack play. I said, buddy, you will be great at whatever you put your mind to it because you have that Visger it. You will do whatever. You have that drive to be as good as you possibly can, but it is not worth it. I told him, I said, look what it did to our family. I said, and you know what? I said, you don't need to beat your brains in. He ended up lettering in 3 or 4 sports in high school, honor student, but he's healthy, you know? So
absolutely. Now,
to me, that kind of speaks volumes that I didn't let my own son play the game that I loved.
That's right. That's right. And understandably so. Now, do you think the NFL today, could they still do more to help prevent some of these concussions and brain injuries that are going on. And like I said, I want to get into your group you developed in a minute, but I wanted to ask you that question just to make sure so that our listeners, I mean, what more can the NFL do and what more should the NFL do to prevent these injuries from happening?
Well, the problem is that the game is inherently not good for your body, period. And if you play football at any level, especially at the NFL, it's not if you get injured, you will be injured.
Right.
Some worse than others. You're going to be injured. So they're doing things. A lot of the stuff they're doing is fluff to look good to people, because here's their concern. This is why I've been in their sites for years, and I've been on ESPN, NPR, CNN decades ago when nobody talked about this. Here's their biggest fear. If the mothers catch on to all of this, little Mikey isn't playing football, and all of a sudden things start drying up for the NFL. We don't have all these little feeder teams in high schools and college, and suddenly enrollment's dropping down. So they were fearful of me. And when Dr. Rich Ellenbogen was hired by the NFL to take over for the former Dr. Ira Casson, who was just a whore, he was the head of their mild traumatic brain injury group for years. Senate hearings, they grilled him. You mean there's no correlation between repeated head trauma and brain damage in your NFL players? No, we nicknamed him Dr. No. During one interview, he answered 17 questions with no. So they finally got rid of him in like 2010 or 11. Then I was getting really, really vocal. I found Dave Pear's blog. Pear was an all-pro defensive tackle for the Raiders and went on to have scores of surgeries and thrown to the wolves. And he had this blog, and I started reading up on other guys, and I'm like, man, there are people like me out there. I thought it was just this anomaly, right? So when they get rid of Cass and they hire Dr. Rich Ellenbogen in probably 2010 or 11, and I don't know this Dr. Ellenbogen from squat, but he's heading up the brain injury group now. And so I post a letter to him, and I say, Dear Dr. Ellenbogen, I pray to God you're not another paid whore by the NFL owners, or you'll have blood on your hands like these other criminals do. And I proceeded to lay out guys I knew that committed suicide or died of CTE: Mike Webster, Justin Strelzik. I went on, and I said, I hope you're a man of character and you do what's right. And he called me about 3 days later, and again, I was nobody. Somehow he gets my phone number. He calls me 3 days in a row, and I'm in his ear when he's calling me. I'm not. Finally, the third day, I'm like, he's convincing me that, hey, he's coming to me for help. And so we developed a great relationship. And he asked me after about a week or so, he called me, he says, George, this is Rich. And he goes, I'm meeting with the NFL Rules Committee in 3 days. He says, I want you to draft up suggested rule changes to reduce brain injuries in football, and I'm going to present them to the NFL Rules Committee. If you go to sport, and I wrote him 5 pages of everything from simple things like have the players on a prophylactic level of omega-3 fish oils. It's been proven fish oils will ameliorate inflammation immediately. So you get those neurons slashing around your brain, they get stretched, they get inflamed, they start dying off. That's how you get CTE. As they die off, the tau protein around these neurons, these neurotubules, makes these big amyloid plaques that start killing cells. Well, you can eliminate that inflammation. High dose omega-3s. There are things you can do. I gave him technique changes. I said, you know what? Hits to the head. Don't find the players. The players are trained to do that. You want to stop that happening? $500,000 fine to the owners if one of your players, a flagrant helmet-to-helmet. You don't think things would change? You start hitting the owners in the pocketbook? Right. So you go to Sports Digest, there's pages. The article is titled The Visger Rules. And I think it was 2010 or 11. So Rich Ellenbogen, God bless him, good man, love him. And so he he took a bunch of my recommendations. And if you read that article, you can go through and see, okay, number 7, they implemented 4 years ago. Oh yeah, 11 they did last year, 14 they did 6. I mean, they have been implementing things slowly but surely. A lot of things that I recommended. Shortening the kickoff, pushing the kickoff forward a little bit. You don't have guys running a 50-yard sprint, helmet to
full
helmet.
impact. Right.
Yeah. I mean, there's things that you can do, but the bottom line is it's never going to be a safe game.
Right.
Now, let me ask you this. My last recommendation.
Go ahead.
I said, you want to reduce brain injuries in football? I said, get rid of helmets. They teach you from day one the safest way. Pee Wee Pop Warner, you got to bow your neck, stick your face in the numbers. They teach you every play you lead with your brain. In the old days, it was all shoulder tackling and shoulder blocking. You didn't stick your face in there. Sure, guys broke their noses and tore their ears up. They weren't running across the field sticking their head in, guys. So if you really want to reduce head injuries, throw helmets away. That'll never happen, So
it will never happen. So what was the key thing? What was the point where you said, okay, I'm going to do this Visger group? Talk about the Visger group and what you've done, because from my understanding, it wasn't only football players, it was military veterans, pediatric groups and stuff that we're starting at all ages and any type of brain injuries we're talking about. Talk about it, because I know you're one of the most sought out speakers when it comes to brain injuries. Talk about that and what you've done since 2010 to help others.
So I had an environmental consulting business, but my memory was going down the tubes and economy, but I was getting more and more and more visible. And it was getting where I was getting called all over the country to do talks and stuff. And so I founded the Visger Group, Traumatic Brain Injury Consulting, and I work with anybody with brain injuries. I do seminars on avoidance. I do seminars on recovery. I do motivational talks. Okay, you're in bad shape. Short, choppy steps is my saying. It's a football term. And I've had conferences of 500 people. Have my PowerPoint going. When I get into my short, choppy step, I'll have everyone stand up. I go, now take a big, long stride. Put your foot out as far as you can. I mean, I can knock you over with a finger. In football, you want short, little 10 to 12 inch, your feet shoulder width apart, powerful strides. I said, that's how you recover from brain injuries, from anything. And I tell people, don't worry about getting back to where you were every day. And for you, it may be, maybe you learn to read one word today. That's a step. Tomorrow, try to get 2. And I tell people, don't worry about getting back 100%. And so a lot of my talks are things that I learned over the years that I taught myself. Recovery techniques. I got off all the drugs they had me on in 2010. I was on 4 different dementia medicines, anti-seizure pills, and I'd gone up to 4 nights straight with 0 sleep, because when you get inflammation in your brain, you can't shut thoughts off. And I'd be laying there night after night, dead tired, and just all these things. I can't shut it off. And so the doctors in 2010 told me, well, you have frontal lobe dementia, George. There's no cure. You need to turn in your driver's license, file for disability, and get your finances in order. I said, what are you telling me? I had 3 young kids. I was running an environmental consulting business that I'd started a few years earlier. He goes, well, you're never going to get any better. Just, you need to start preparing. I'm like, what the hell are you telling me? Prepare for what? And I said, no. I mean, I've been a warrior. You know what? We don't quit. And so I got into, I ended up going down to Dr. Amon's clinic. I did a 3-day neurocog evaluation. He recommended hyperbaric oxygen treatments. I connect with Dr. Barry Sears, another one of these angels in my life. Barry, who's a world-renowned expert on reducing inflammation through dietary changes, started shipping me cases of his omega-3 fish oils. They're purified. I was taking 16 to 18 grams a day I started doing hyperbaric oxygen treatments, put me in a big pressurized tube for 90 minutes where I breathe pure oxygen at 1.6 atmospheres. After every 40 treatments, I would go back down to Amos Clinic for a 7-hour neurocog evaluation. After my 160th treatment, my neurocog memory scores improved 14.3%, and I quit all the damn drugs they had me on, other than my seizure meds, because I couldn't afford not, to have a seizure drive and kill somebody. So here I am now, 67. I mean, I'm rolling. I'm doing better than I was 20 years ago. I do, one of the blessings, I've had a ton of blessings from my injury over the years. So back in 82, when I had my second, third brain surgeries, and we told the new doc about me getting arrested, after the first, I had developed brain seizures from alcohol. So back in 82, they tested me, just 2 beers, my brain waves were all over. I was fine. They said, you can't drink anymore. I quit drinking in 1982. I've never had a problem like that. So due to my injury, I quit alcohol, which was a blessing. I got into, way back when I heard fish oils were good for lowering cholesterol. And I ate like 12 to 18 eggs a day for years to keep my weight up. So I was afraid my heart was going to explode. So I got on fish oils years ago, not knowing they were good for my brain. So I've been doing things over the years that were actually good for me. And so like I said, here I am now, and I've done craniosacrotherapy, electrostimulation. Just today, my wife and I were doing neurofeedback. We've been doing this for several weeks. I've made myself a guinea pig to try anything out there. And if it works, I'll promote it. If it doesn't, I'll tell people at my conferences, just because it didn't work for me doesn't mean it won't work for you. But I'm trying things, and I'm going in. I'm a scientist. I'm a biologist. I'm going in open-eyed, and let's try this. And then if it works, let's try it some more. And so I put together plans for people, brain injury recovery stuff. I tell folks, I just speak the truth. I piss a lot of people off, especially a lot of the medical field, because I tell folks at my conferences, there's a reason they call it practicing medicine. They practice on us. They're not God. They don't have all the answers. Try this drug. Oh, you're getting worse. Try this drug. I mean, some fault to some of them, no fault to some others, but you need to be your own advocate. You need to investigate your injuries. You need to go and ask pointed questions to doctors. I take someone with me since the 80s. My brother would go with me to every doctor's appointment. I have my notepad. I'm writing things, and even writing things down.
Right.
I will hear things different. I've walked out of doctor's appointments with my brother years ago, and he said, I'm doing good. And Bob would look to me and said, you said you're doing good here. But he said, boom, 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 boom. And it's like, oh, really? So I've learned coping mechanisms to fake my way through life. People don't know how brain damaged I am,
Yeah. Now, I want to get into your book, because I know we're running out of time here. But before I get into your book and where they can get your book, Facing Giants, I wanted to ask you, and I know your answer probably to this, but I know some of our listeners would want to hear this as well. Is it safe to say that NFL owners are more interested in profit than the safety of their players?
You think? Oh, yeah. You know what? Here's the thing. Like when I was playing, they hung it over your head. Your knee's all torn up. Well, let us shoot it up. We can get another 2 more games out of you. And if you don't do it, there's 50,000 guys looking for your job.
That's right. That's what they think.
When I do my talks, I tell kids, I said, you know what? Have aspirations to make it in the NFL, wonderful. Set that goal, work your tail off, but get your degree, because here's reality. In 2016, there was like 1,062,416 football players in America, right? And of those, I forget, like a third of those were college players. Okay, so let's say 300,000. Of those, I tell the kids, you know how many jobs are available? 32 teams, maybe 4 rookies a team will make it. What's that, 130 jobs available for how many tens of thousands of players coming out of college every year? I mean, shoot for it. You know what? But have your backup plan. Get your education and don't count on it. And here's another crazy thing. So to be vested in the NFL, you need 4 years, and the average career is 3.2. So 70-something% of anyone that ever makes it to the NFL is done with life-altering injuries, and they have 0 benefits.
Crazy. Talk about your book, because I know it's coming out in a week or two, or a couple of weeks.
Yep.
Talk about Facing Giants, and then let people know where they can purchase the book. And also, I want you to let people know how they can book you for your motivational speaking, which I know you travel all over the place.
Yep. I love doing those. So the book's supposed to come out by the end of this month. It got pushed back a couple of different times. We had a lot of stuff going on. But and you can pre-order right now. There are 200 limited edition, personally hand signing each one, hardcover copies that can be ordered just at georgevisger.com. And then they can order after that next month or this month coming up, Barnes & Noble, Amazon, all the usual suspects. And it's titled Facing Giants, My 38-Year Battle. And it's the 38-year legal battle I had to settle my work comp case. Injured at 22, I settled my case at age 61. So you can go to georgevisger.com, and then also you can also go to the Visger Group, a traumatic brain injury consulting website, or you can go to georgevisger.com to contact me, or visgergeorge@gmail, last name, first name. And I speak all over the country. I love empowering people. I love educating folks. I've been blessed by all this. God has given me this cross to help folks, and that's what we're doing. Fourth quarter is ours, and this is what I'm doing. So we're excited. I'm pumped up.
Yeah, I can't wait to see the book come out, and just an amazing story. I want to thank you so much for allowing us the time for you to tell your story to everyone that's listening, and it's been a pleasure having you.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. And I know I probably got off track a few times when I'm rambling.
That's fine. No, it's great. I mean, it's a story that we wanted to hear. Let me ask you this in closing, George. Do you find yourself getting a lot of former NFL players calling you for advice when it comes to head injuries that they think they suffered?
Yes, let me tell you. There was a guy by the name of Jason Harrison. So Jason played 15 years after me. He played on the 49ers 96 practice squad. He was a linebacker out of UC Davis. And then the next year, 97, he played 1 year with the Broncos practice squad, then went on and founded Sitka Gear, hunting outdoor apparel gear, built it into a multi-million-dollar company, sold that, then founded Kuiu, Kuiu, top of the line, huge company. A few years ago, he called me up out of the blue. We had hunted together a couple times, and he said, George, I took a shotgun to bed with me last night. I'm like, what? So I turned around. I told him to meet me at the hyperbaric oxygen clinic. I introduced him to Mike, my brother Mike, I call him, that has been treating me for years when the travelers quit pain. And I got him lined out. And then after multiple hearing wins and battles, I'm in treatment at Center for Neuroskills. 3 or 4 years later, and one of my nephews called and said, Uncle George, Jason took a shotgun to bed with him last night, blew his brains out with his kids in the house. I lost another. I mean, I've lost several guys. And this isn't just an NFL disease. A good buddy of mine, Mark Davis. I played Pop Warner in high school with him. That's as far as he ever went. Several years ago, he came to me. Hey, Visk, man, my brain's all effed up. I said, so is mine. This is what I do. So I've been helping him out, struggling. June 2nd of this last year, I'm standing in Silver Creek, Idaho, fly fishing with Brian Rodeo Bo McCabe, one of my Colorado teammates who played linebacker right behind me. And Bo literally had a stroke sitting across from me at dinner several years ago in Seattle with his wife and another one of our teammates, his wife. So Bo's out here now. He's struggling. He's standing in the stream next to me. I've got to kind of help him falling over. I get a phone call. Mark Davis, my Pop Warner high school teammate in Stockton. Hey, Mark, how you doing? Heard the strange voice. No, George, this is Sean, his son. And I've never met Sean. I go, yeah. He goes, my dad hasn't been answering the phone. Last 2 days I came over here. He's sitting in his recliner. He killed himself and his phone's in his hand. And I see you've been trying to call you. I've lost a few guys like that I have personally worked with. Jason Henderson had stage 3 CTE. I mean, this disease, I know Mark was never tested. I've had a couple other guys that I work with closely. I mean, it's 2 or 3 of my Colorado teammates have killed themselves over the years. Bill Rowe, Ray Cohn, guys that, I mean, that you would never have expected it.
Right.
Some have been tested, some of them haven't. But right now, I tell you what, the last I read, 347 NFL brains tested, it's like 96% have had CTE. It's crazy. So, and like I said, it's not just an NFL disease. It's a head trauma. It's a repeated head trauma disease. So high school kids are getting it, killing themselves and being tested positive for CTE. So,
yep.
Anyway, so my book covers a lot of this stuff.
Okay.
I get real deep into the treatments I did. And it's not just a doom and gloom, me bashing football. It's a pretty, I lived it, and it's a pretty crazy story. It goes through my early years and some of the guys I played with, great people I've met along the way, things I did to recover, things I did to battle and fight, win, fight after fight. So it ends off with me just blessing my kids and thanking them for Amanda, Jack, and Stephanie for being the great human beings. They went through hell. 10 years we were homeless. 10 years. And they kept their grades up. They pounded it out. They never complained. And they're the greatest people I know. I love them to death. Stephanie Kester, Amanda Visger, Jack Visger. I'm proud of all of them. My ex, Christy Kester, God bless you, Christy, for giving me these great kids. So the book, it'll uplift you. There's a lot of dark in it, but that's life, you know?
Yep, it sure is. Well, listen, my friend, we got to run, but I want to thank you once again so very, very much for taking the time with us this evening.
Again, thank you from the bottom of my heart for having me on. I know I probably went overboard, but...
Nope, it's a great story, one that should be heard by everyone. Thanks again.
God bless you, brother. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, that was George Visger. We ran out of time, but I want to thank everybody for tuning in. And remember, buy the book, Facing Giants, his 38-year battle. It's an incredible story, and I'm sure it's an incredible book. Until next time, I'm Larry Frank, Frankly Speaking Sports.